Next week, I will be revealing the shocking truth about the powerful forces who operate in the shadows of Westminster and how they orchestrated Boris Johnson's downfall. Number 10 have tried to stop me, asking me to halt the publication of my book and let them see a copy first, but that's not going to happen. In fact, we can talk about one of the many revelations right now. The powerful Tory known as Dr. No, this shadowy fixer at the heart of Number 10, was rumoured to have had a rabbit chopped up and nailed to the owner's home in a warning to his ex-girlfriend. James and Tim are still with me. James, that was just a teaser for the rest of the book, which came out today. But for me, it's a really shocking one. You know, as an animal lover, it's a really shocking one. What did you think? What do you make of what you've heard so far? And, you know, what do you think about somebody who has this kind of personality, but apparently, you know, Rishi doesn't move without asking his advice first, operating at the heart of Number 10?
Well, I think power attracts psychopathy, and I'm sure that our Dr. No or Dr. Strangeheart or Francis Urquhart or whatever code name we're giving him,
it's like a real House of Cards.
Is not alone in displaying these this types of personality. I mean, as we were talking about, one aspect of it, Westminster is not a particularly nice place with respect to how the harassment and so on of staff, but also this attracts people that are attracted to power, and they will act in quite strong ways. I'm interested to see more about the book because, of course, you know, I think that our politics is rather controlled, but I'm interested to see the ways in which you think our politics is rather controlled.
It's very much controlled. Now, I've made the point over and over again that people believe that when they go to the ballot box, that their vote makes a difference, and it doesn't make any difference at all. And that was in the research that I undertook when I was writing this book. That was the biggest shock to me, because coming from my background in a council estate, all you have is your vote to affect change. In that vote lies all your hope. And actually, when people think power flows from that ballot box into Westminster, it doesn't.
Welcome to the revolution, Nadine.
On the way.
I'm going to disagree with both of you now. James, look, of course we don't have a perfect democracy, but the idea that what you vote for at the ballot box doesn't make a difference, of course it makes a difference. What happened at the referendum? We voted for Brexit against the political establishment's wishes. We got it. Thatcher changed the country by winning 3 general elections. Boris could have changed. This is where you and I really disagree, Nadine. Boris could have changed the country if he governed well. He didn't. Of course, there are shadowy figures in Number 10, and you're right to expose them. They've been in the Conservative Party far too long. But you know the person who orchestrated Boris Johnson's downfall most of all? Boris Johnson. He wasn't a good Prime Minister for all sorts of reasons.
We're not going there, because you and I are going to fight till the cats come home on this one. But what I would say is this, Tim, is that you mentioned Margaret Thatcher. There have been Prime Ministers, Tony Blair, Margaret Thatcher, Boris Johnson, where people have gone out and voted as much for the person as they've gone out and voted for the party.
Also, we're more and more presidential.
On my council estate, I remember running with other kids after a car, shouting Margaret Thatcher, with the car on the tannoy, and it must have been, I don't remember when it was, but there was a tannoy on the top of the car. It must have been...
This was in Liverpool.
No, so this is not me. This is the kids in our close. This was it 83? Maybe, was it? Yeah. So the kids in the close where we were living, running, shouting Margaret Thatcher after the car. And the reason why I was running, because I was babysitting. Anyway, that's another story. And I remember that very clearly. And there are individuals, characters that people will vote for. And I think one of the problems that we have now is, you know, they voted for Blair. They didn't vote for Gordon Brown. This has been going for some time. They didn't vote for Gordon Brown. They didn't actually vote for John Major. Labour lost that election. John Major didn't win it. And there is this, it's much more now about the individual. So I think there are those shadowy figures, they know that, and I think they use that to their own ends. And, you know, Ian Duncan Smith, great person, removed. And I think those shadowy figures have far more power than people realise. And it wasn't just removing...
I was Ian's chief of staff
but you were right there in the middle of it.
And a lot of those people that brought Ian down, they're still in the Conservative Party.
They're the same people in Ian's... I probably shouldn't reveal what's in the book, actually. But they're the same people who brought... Exactly the same people who brought Boris Johnson down.
These are the men in grey.
So men
in grey suits.
Well, actually, no, I will say these are Ian's words. The same people who removed Ian as leader of the party removed Boris Johnson as Prime Minister and had a role to play in David Cameron and Theresa May. You know, we've had
What about Liz Truss? Did they bring down Liz Truss as well?
We've had... Well, you need to read the book, James. We've had 5 Prime Ministers and the people have been removed and the people have not had a say in that. So you cannot say that democracy is thriving and doing well in this country when we have Prime Minister after Prime Minister. No, and I'm the biggest defender of democracy. But we have had Prime Minister after Prime Minister after Prime Minister who has left office and been replaced, that people in this country have had no say in that person being in that position. James.
Yeah, I mean, I would go much further than in terms of democratising our politics, opening it up, than just that there should be an election every time there's a change of Prime Minister, although I think that's also a perfectly reasonable thing. I mean, we have problems with our electoral system. We have problems that lots of decision-making is completely removed from politics. The decision-making of the Bank of England, which is extremely important to your viewers at home for their mortgages, for cost of living, that's not politically debated because it's removed from politics, and we see that in a whole number of areas. And part of the impulse for at least some people behind Brexit was to have more direct, a democratic say within our parliament, and I hate to say that there's not a tremendous amount of that that's happened.
In terms of Brexit, there's no point us going over that now because, we've had those arguments. I think the debate at the moment is about what's happening with democracy in our country at the moment. We've had a party that's been in power for so many years and yet so many prime ministers that people haven't voted for, decisions made that people haven't voted for, a manifesto that people voted for in 2019, which has been completely abandoned.
Absolutely.
There are so many issues which are happening right now. And do you know what, James? I think that even if Keir Starmer, which he's probably going to win the next election, I'm very sure of that, if Keir Starmer wins the next election, I know people are thinking it's going to be different under Labour. I think one of the biggest maligned forces in politics in Westminster at the moment is social media. And I'm not sure that it actually will be any different for Keir Starmer. I think he will start to have very quickly his own problems within the Labour Party, whether that comes from MPs or from others, because as a result of social media.